The 2018 calendar year in golf gets underway this week in Hawaii as the season's longest break comes to an end. We'll preview the event with the latest stats, odds, and picks. And we'll also talk Tiger as Prime Sports Golf, brought to you by ProGolfWeekly.com on the Prime Sports Radio Network, starts now. All right, it's Wednesday, January 3rd, 2018. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. Thanks for joining us again for a great season of golf coverage, along with our partners at ProGolfWeekly.com. Joining me each week are my co-hosts. First is a PGATour.com contributor. You can find his first look reports every Friday prior to the events on the PGA Tour, Jeff Shane. Jeff, good talking to you again.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually getting pretty psyched here to watch. I mean, I always look forward towards the end of the calendar year to the beginning of the new year, knowing that we're going to be freezing watching golf in Hawaii. And here we are, the country's freezing, and we're going to be watching golf in Hawaii with some really good players too, as in the past. I mean, as we talked about in the last few years, 3-4 years ago, it was a pretty weak field, but we get all these top players thanks to all these young guns have all decided, hey, why not? Let's go out there and play in this event.
Yeah, it's been kind of a change of attitude because Phil Mickelson, I think, was the first one to stop playing at Kapalua, did not want it to cut into his holidays. And let's face it, when you're teeing off on January 3rd, January 4th, I think one year they actually did tee off on January 1st. I've always been an advocate of trying to build an extra week into the break so that those that wanted to enjoy their holidays all the way through did not have to make that type of decision. Although, let's also face it, New Year's in Hawaii, I'd take it.
Yeah. So. Poor guys. Also joining us from ProGolfWeekly.com, weekly digital magazine covering pro golf around the globe, is ProGolfWeekly.com lead writer Joel Cook. Joel,
hello.
You're in Michigan, so speaking of cold, how you doing?
Yeah, we're okay. We're getting blasted right now, but that's pretty typical for this time of year. But it'll be nice to kind of watch some of the coverage this weekend and take my mind somewhere else.
Yep.
About somewhere about opposite of where I am right now as I could be.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so we are going to get right into this week's event, but before we do that, let's talk about the big story since the last time we spoke, because the last time we did have, I think we did a show late November. Jeff, you and I did the preview of Tiger's event, and we haven't done a show since, and it turned out to be a pretty big week for Tiger, a pretty big week for Ricky, and in all, a very successful week for an event that in years past nobody really paid too much attention to, but Tiger Woods sure made a show of it, and for the first time in years, there's actually hope that Tiger can come back and be a really good, solid player on tour, of course, barring any setbacks, but so far so good.
So far, so good, and maybe the most important thing was that he came out enthused. Were there holes in his game? Yes, no question about that. But the fact that he is healthy, that he was able to go 4 rounds with apparently no physical issues whatsoever, I think that's the most encouraging thing. Now, from there, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You can watch that the Tiger was driving it long and straight and get excited. You can see that he was making some putts and get excited. For those that don't want to jump on the hype train too fast, you could see the holes in the short game and say, hold on, wait a minute. But I think finishing in the middle of the pack against a field that featured 17 of the top 32 players in the world, is actually a very encouraging sign.
Yep.
Now, how will that translate to when the brighter spotlight comes on in front of a bigger live audience, and some hot shots that aren't necessarily ranked in the world top 32?
Sure.
But they will also, will also have a lot of young players who, just may have a hot week and contend. That's going to
okay.
be, kind of the question. And that's going to be the intrigue, I think, whenever and wherever he decides to tee it up, because we still do not have any sort of smoke signal yet as to where and when we will see Tiger Woods in PGA Tour competition.
Joel, I think the thing that again, why it was exciting to see the way that he played and didn't have any setbacks, because look, we all know he's never going to be what he once was, but that's not our goal as fans. We just want to see him healthy, and if he's healthy and playing like he did a few weeks back, and he's just going to get better from that as long as he stays healthy. As I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with having somebody play like Phil Mickelson was a few years ago before he's had this winless drought, where, okay, maybe you win once or twice a year, maybe you contend for a major, maybe you win a major every couple of years. That would be great for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely, it would be. It wasn't just that he was healthy; he seems genuinely happy to be playing again, and extremely optimistic about his health. He's not just trying to grind and get through there and hoping nothing else breaks on him. He's seems legitimately healthy. It'll be great to see where we start seeing him pick his spots. Hopefully, he doesn't do what last time and fly over to Dubai after his first outing.
Yeah, if he even thinks of doing that, we should have a petition out on Twitter or something and make sure that he changes his mind fast. So hopefully he doesn't need any of that, though, and he's learned his lesson.
I mean, he
if you read his newsletter, I was going to say, if you read his newsletter at the end of...
All right, wait a second.
Okay, we're stepping on each other.
Yeah,
Go
ahead, Joel.
At the very least, he looks like someone who would be a good bet to at least comfortably make the playoffs next year. I don't know if he's going to win anywhere, but he looks like he's someone who will be able to compete here and there. And everyone's so excited for him too. Like Jordan Spieth was talking about how excited he was for that the other day. It's something the younger guys are really looking forward to the challenge and hoping they get some of the old Tiger back.
Jeff?
I was going to say, if you read his newsletter that he puts out at the end of the year, always does, he even said he's not sure he will play back-to-back events at any time in 2018, much less back-to-back events on different continents, 12 time zones apart from each other. So maybe there's a recognition already that he's got to be very, very, very judicious about how he plans his schedule. And as I say, he has not given any indications to when he will debut, but it does sound like he's going to try to space things out so that, I suppose major season might do things a little bit differently, but he'll have a better judge on his body by then. But at least early on, I don't think we will see back-to-back through at least the Masters.
All right, well...
That sounds kind of like the Joel Embiid of golf right now, or something like that. That's kind of how they've been taking care of him.
Hey, whatever works. That's all that we are hoping for. And look, I will say this, is if he plays... If it wasn't just some fluky way that he played, and that's something that that's the best that we're going to see. Okay, but I don't see that happening. I think that if he were to play, 20 times this year, 15, 20 times this year, I actually think he'd win once. I really do. He's that good, and saying that he'd win once for a guy as good as Tiger Woods is not asking for a whole lot, as long as he stays healthy.
Not at all. And I'll throw this one out there. I was thinking about this today. Remember that he is not eligible at this point for any of the World Golf Championships events.
Okay.
Because of his world ranking. If you want to get a win under your belt, Tiger doesn't usually have this opportunity, and maybe he wouldn't even think about it to begin with. But he could play the Dominican Republic, and he could play Reno, and he could play some of these other events that are opposite the World Golf Championships, which would, A, boost those events that rarely get a marquee name, and B, might be able to let him be a winner in a different locale. What I've always said about Tiger is he goes the same places all the time, wins at the same places all the time. And you take out 6 locales, and that's 80% of his wins. So if he wanted to, he could spread it around a little differently, at least till he gets back into the top 50 in the world rankings, and just take his show to some different locales.
All right, so this week we won't see Tiger because this week at Kapalua we're only going to see players who won at least once last season in golf. So that is and it's also a course, Joel. It's the only par 73 on tour.
Yes, yes it is. It's about 7,400 yards, par 73. One less par 3 on that one.
All right, and anything in particular that, because it's a par 73, that we're going to see this week that we don't normally see at any other courses?
One thing about
the scoring is always really low at this point. Ernie Els had that minus 31 1 year. It's, for being a par 73, it's not a freakishly long course or anything. I mean, there's a lot of elevation changes, and that kind of plays into the yardage a bit. But it's big greens, a lot of easier to putt there. It was slower anyway.
Jeff?
Yeah, as I was about to mention as well, you have all of these elevation changes, and mostly downhill, it seems, or at least that's where everybody seems to focus. So from the beginning, you get these monster 400-yard drives because of the elevation changes. It's really a course that you can overpower. The record is 31 under. You see a lot of numbers that you would see as maybe temperature readings of the North Pole, minus 28, so you have to go low, and in this type of field, they all have the talent to do that.
All right, and there are some, even though the fairways are pretty wide, there are some areas where if you miss the fairway pretty poorly, you can get yourself into some trouble. What is it that they have there? It seems like to the casual person that's just watching on TV, it just looks like they're in these bushes. What is that exactly called that they get into if they get in trouble?
I am horrible at botany. Are you any better, Joel? I just call it native grasses.
Yeah, I didn't know it had a special name to it.
So that's all it is, right? But it is difficult, right? I mean, you can get in there and you're in trouble. You're going to lose a stroke or two.
Well, because it's at the base of a mountain, it may not be the vegetation that's so much an issue, but that's usually bordering on rocks, and that's going to create real issues with lie and being able to get your club on the ball. And
okay.
And yeah, the counterbalance to that is that they are some of the widest fairways on tour all year. So if you're missing these fairways, call your coach.
And by the way, even though it's an island, there's no water holes, right?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Because it's at the base of a volcano, of a dormant volcano.
Okay. All right. So Joel, you got the first pick this week, and we've got ourselves a favorite, an odds-on favorite. And that is Jordan Spieth. He's the 2016 champ. He's been here 3 times. He's finished first, second, and third. So no big shock then why Jordan Spieth is the favorite. And he's been playing some really good golf. Of course, Justin Thomas and Ricky Fowler are next at 7-1. Ricky had that phenomenal finish in Tiger's tournament. The last we saw him. He's played fairly well here a couple of times. And, of course, Justin Thomas, Player of the Year last year, is the defending champ. And that's really what got his year started off in style when he had all those wins to start the year and of course, end the year strong. Dustin Johnson, meanwhile, is next at 8-1. Dustin is the 2013 champ, and he's played pretty well here over his career. Nothing great, but pretty well. Including that one win. So those are the top 4 players, Spieth, Fowler, Thomas, and Dustin Johnson. Are any of those guys going to be your top pick?
They are. It's the first pick of the new year. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm just going to take Jordan Spieth. He's just too good at this course. He has win 2 years ago where he's absolutely blasted the rest of the field. He's a safe bet to go, to always keep going low. He's the perfect fit for it. He's had some good personal news recently with his engagements, and maybe that's something that will. So some players do better after that. Some players get married and then just do a whole lot worse. He's still in an exciting stage. I think maybe he'll give him a little boost.
Okay. 8 out of the last 10, he's finished in the top 10 worldwide, and that includes 2 runner-ups and 2 wins, with one of those wins being the Open Championship. So Jordan Spieth on top of his game. The last we saw him was at the Hero World Challenge when he finished 3rd place. All right, Jeff. So are you going to take any of those remaining 3 favorites?
Yeah, I definitely am. And the thing about Spieth is he's kind of a counterintuitive pick. I mean, his results speak for themselves, but for the way the course is and the idea that you can bomb at 400 yards, you would not think that it would be a course that matched Spieth up very well. But obviously he does play it well with not being outside the top 3. My typical approach to this time of year has always been to go with the hot hand, who was playing in December or at least late November, who did well in some of those overseas events, or even they didn't have to necessarily be too far overseas. But one of the hot hands that, we've talked about him already in this show because he won the Hero World Challenge. That came on the heels of being runner-up at the OHL Classic on the Yucatan Peninsula in his first start post 2017, the 2017 season and the President's Cup. But Ricky Fowler has come out of the gate very quickly and is hoping that it will carry over into the first part of the new year. And so I'm going to take Ricky with my first pick. It's 6-1.
Yeah, the thing with he's actually 7-1. The thing
7-1.
The thing with Ricky that we all know about how good Ricky can be, and we've seen these young players pop up recently, Spieth, Thomas, and everybody's expecting, okay, is it now Ricky's turn? We've talked about the whole thing where he has been the overrated player, and I've defended that before, and now we're starting to get a lot of people that are almost in unison. This is going to be Ricky's year, and see, I mean, I understand where they're coming from completely. We all do, but that's a tricky thing, Joel, to put all that. I'm not saying necessarily pressure on Ricky, whether or not he's listening to that, but it's definitely going to put pressure on the analysts because, see, I know as somebody that handicaps sporting events, what happens. I just saw it happen a couple days ago that I knew right off the bat which analysts picked Oklahoma and which ones didn't by how they reacted and analyzed the game. And that's what will happen if Ricky doesn't play well to their expectations, if they're the ones proclaiming this is Ricky's year. And I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair to the player. Like if he goes out and wins another event or two, but doesn't win a major, they're going to say he's overrated. What's going on with Ricky? And most of those people that will be saying that will be the people that proclaimed at this time, this is Ricky's year. Ricky's going to have a great year. Ricky's going to break out. Because they don't want to look stupid. That's how it is. And they'll feel that Ricky will let them down. And so they'll criticize him for it. And I think that's a little, so it's just so, again, I don't know whether that's going to be pressure on Ricky, but there's so many people expecting so much from him this year. I just don't know if that's fair or not.
Well, yeah, that was
I only want him to,
very well articulated.
I don't want it to be his week.
Well, I know you only want, yeah, I get that, Jeff. But as far as the year, and look, depending on how he's playing, Joel, where it's not, I mean, I doubt any of us are going to leave Ricky off the board for any of these majors coming up, because we're all going to anticipate at some point he's going to win this year, as long as he's playing halfway decent. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that I think is worth watching, because we all do believe at some point, because of his talent, he is going to have a really good breakout year and win a major. But hey, you know what, Ricky? Do it on your time. Don't do it on the time that analysts believe you should do it. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree. We saw that with Dustin Johnson for a long time too. But if Fowler looks like it could be, I mean, I'd go into every year saying it looks like it could be his year. He was competitive in the majors last year.
Sure.
I remember he had that year where he finished in the top 5 in all 4, and then just all of a sudden he was MIA at majors for a while. But last year he had 2 top 5s again. I mean, he knows how to win. I don't want to say he'll definitely win this year, but he's great bet. And like you said, there's not going to be any tournaments where we're leaving him off the board. He's regardless of the locale, he's someone who's going to compete every week.
Yeah, definitely not to start the season. So, all right, I will go ahead and slide down just a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and take a player who has done very well here in a couple of tries. I think his game is starting to possibly round back into shape, and that's important because he went through a cold spell recently, and that's Hideki Matsuyama. So he'll be my first choice at 12-1. He was second here, runner-up to Justin Thomas last year. Is pretty close through till the end. And again, he's got 3 top 5s over his last 4 worldwide after a stretch where things just didn't look good for him at all. But now he's had a little bit of time to rest, and we all know how important that was for him. So Matsuyama, who got off to a really hot start last year, I'll go ahead and take as my top pick at 12-1. Okay, next up is Joel. Joel, that leaves you Justin Thomas if you want him. Also, by the way, Brooks Koepka and Jon Rahm are 12-1 along with Matsuyama. So are you going to take any of those players?
Well, it seems almost unfair to get both Spieth and Thomas for this one, but I'm going to do that anyway. Let's go with the guy who swept Hawaii last year. He ended the year, great. He had that win at the CJ Cup too. He's coming in hot. We know he's comfortable defending in tournaments, and if you want a guy who can go low and reach that really low, Arctic temperature readings that we see at these things, Thomas, he's someone that is just going to be able to score like that.
All right, so there you go. Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth are your top 2 players on the board. Next up, Jeff, you've got Ricky as your top pick. Are you going to take any of those players we've already talked about that are left on the board?
Yeah, this is one of those weeks where you're going to have some really good players left on the board regardless. I'm going to go a little bit further down. He had trouble in the middle of the season, but he closed fast. And again, I'm all about closing fast in this carryover to the new season. And he seems to play better on this continent than he does on his home continent. And I will go down a little bit, but not too far, to Jon Rahm at 12-1.
All right. Well, yeah, Rahm's coming off a win, and so the last time we saw him was over in Europe, and he got the win on. Actually, where was that event? That World Tour Championship. Where was that?
That was in Dubai.
That was in Dubai. Okay, so
that was the season finale.
Yeah. So and like you said, it wasn't like he was hot going into that event, but he won it, and we're always talking about sooner or later Jon Rahm is going to go to events that he's actually played at. Well, he has never played here. So
this might be the last one of those short majors.
Yeah, I feel like I write about that every week. This is the first time we're seeing him this court. Is this finally the last one with him that he hasn't done before?
Yeah. So definitely a good pick. Jon Rahm was on my board for sure, and we'll see if he can get 2 in a row in the books. All right. Let's see. Next up, I'm going to a couple of choices here to look at. And wasn't really sure. Didn't like the way that he ended things at the Hero World. Brooks Koepka didn't seem to play very well there. So that's definitely a little bit concerning. But the player that seemed to play a little better than he did, and look, Koepka played, he had his moments for sure besides the Hero World. But a player that you seem to take an awful lot. And he played pretty well towards the end of the season, and that is Mark Leishman at 25-1. Leishman, over his last 6 events, had 4 top 5s and the win at the BMW. He hasn't played here in 5 years, So I don't really care about the player that was here 5 years ago. This is a better player. So I'll go with Mark Leishman at 25 to 1. All right, Joel. So you are next. And we still have Dustin Johnson on the board at 8 to 1. Brooks Koepka, as I mentioned, at 12 to 1. And then we start going to players a little bit higher up. As far as the non-long shots, Patrick Cantlay's at 22 to 1. Kisner and Perez are 28 to 1. Schauffele, Henley, Berger are 33 to 1. So you going to take any of those guys?
Usually like to gamble a little more in these things, but the guy I like most left is too high up there. Brooks Koepka, he finished dead last at the Hero World Challenge. I'm hoping that didn't matter to him. Maybe he's got to a bad start and didn't care since it was official. He won in Japan recently. He had some other really high finishes. He took third in this tournament the first year he played it. It was second at the WGC HSBC. But he's great fit for the course. He can bomb it, but he's also can putt. He's been comfortable here before. I thought that's who I was going to take as my second pick, and I was surprised to see Thomas still around. Koepka, I think is a good bet this week.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I was real close to taking him as well. Just not sure about the way that he played at the Hero, but that could have just been one of those things. He just really wasn't all in psychologically. Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
Partying or something.
Sure. We'll find out. It was starting tomorrow, though, one way or another, if his game is on or not. And it's good to have three. Actually, yeah, you had 3 of the 4 major winners from last year, Joel.
I didn't realize that.
You must feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
Who was the 4th?
I don't want
Sergio, who's not
Sergio,
here.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Sergio's not here. Who else is in here? Big names.
Patrick Reed.
Big names.
McIlroy.
McIlroy, okay. Sergio McIlroy, Henrik Stenson.
Yeah,
Justin Rose.
McIlroy wouldn't have qualified.
True.
Justin Rose would.
Justin Rose, okay.
Stenson won at Wyndham to end the regular season, so he would have qualified. A lot of the European Tour players who had the longer season finish going to Turkey and Dubai and South Africa in the middle there of their playoffs. Those are the ones that seem to be sitting out this year, is that very few Europeans. Rahm is probably the only European. Now that I'm kind of scrolling down the list, I think he's the only European, at least of the upper echelon, that is in this field.
Okay. All right. So, Jeff, you are next. So, who do you have as your third choice after going with Fowler and Rahm?
Well, just as Joel couldn't leave a major winner off the board, we've gone through now 7 picks, and the world number 1 is still on the board. And this is a place that can fit him pretty well. His performance chart is not as good as a Spieth, which is kind of odd, but he does have 4 top 10s in as many trips. His scoring average is 69, and so I can go with Dustin Johnson at this place.
All right, Dustin Johnson is off the board finally at 8 to 1. So that means that, let's see, the top 7, 8 players, as far as the odds are concerned, are now gone. The top player left is Patrick Cantlay at 22 to 1. Cantlay coming off the win at Shriners. We have not seen him since the breakout win at Shriners. He's not going to be my top pick, but he is definitely available. I'll go ahead and take a player that I think we would agree has got the potential to have a breakout year himself. He had some moments, which is the reason that he's here. But there's more left in the tank. I don't think there's any question talent-wise. And I'll go ahead and take Daniel Berger as my third choice. And Berger sitting there at 33 to 1. So maybe Berger can kickstart his season and put himself up in contention with a lot of the big boys to start the season. So Next up, Joel, is your long shot play. So these are players that are 50 to 1 or higher. And let's see, as far as those 50 to 1 shots, we got players like Kevin Chappell, Brendan Steele, Kyle Stanley. We've got DeChambeau at 66 to 1. We've got Duffner and Cook at 80 to 1. We've got Siwoo Kim, Horschel, and Hadwin at 100 to 1. And on a bunch of others, I mean, I know you've taken Johnny Vegas a bunch of times. He's at 125 to 1. Grayson Murray's at 150 to 1. And so on. The biggest long shot in the field is DA Points at 300 to 1. So who is your long shot?
Well, this is a tournament where usually the first timers don't do that great. John Rahm just screams exception to that rule. But for the most part, it's been pretty consistent of the first timers and struggles. I'm going to take the guy who was 50 to 1, who finished sixth here last year. That's Brendan Steele. Won the Safeway Open in October. Done well here in the past. I think 51 odds are pretty good for him.
All right, Brendan Steele, your official long shot at 50 to 1. Played here last year and finished sixth. Jeff, who is your long shot?
Yeah, that was the guy that I was looking at the most was Steele because of the experience factor and the fact that he played well last year. You take the rest of this long shot field, almost all of them are first timers, with 1, 2, 3, 4 exceptions, 5 if you count VA Points. So the chances are pretty good that you might wind up having to go with a first timer here. I'm going to take a guy who made 2017 a real renaissance year and came back from the middle of nowhere. And not only did he play well to end the 2017 season, but he started with some fairly decent results to begin 2017/2018. And we'll hope that he remembers a little bit about Kapalua because he hasn't been here since 2013. But that would be Kyle Stanley, who had a run of 21st, 19th, and 5th overseas at the latter part of 2017.
All right, yeah, definitely trending in the right direction, and we'll see whether or not the time off has interrupted that trend.
Yeah.
Or whether or not he can pick up where he left off. But he is 50 to 1. So why not take a chance that he can pick up where he left off? All right. And let's see. So there are several others here for me to choose from. Let's see. And I've got a couple of guys in mind. So I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and see between 1 and 2. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and take Siwoo Kim. Siwoo Kim at 100 to 1. Because we know with him it's all about staying healthy. So hopefully the time off has done well for him. He's a very talented player, winning the Players. So I'll take Kim as my official long shot. I was also thinking about Bryson DeChambeau, who won at the John Deere. I picked him as an alternate when he won that week. He really cooled off since the win. Played a little bit better, though, to start the season. 17th at Safeway, 7th at Shriners, 14th at Mayakoba. So he has been playing better. But, I mean, Kim got a whole lot of talent. And he, even though he missed the cut at the RSM, he did finish third at Mayakoba. So he'll be my official long shot. All right, Joel. So who is your alternate in case Spieth, Thomas, or Koepka decide to do some fishing instead of golf?
I'll go with another one of the hot hands. Brian Harman at 35 to 1. His last 3 starts, then the year at a 5th place and 8th in a T4. And he didn't do great last time he played here, but he did finish with a 65. So he knows he can shoot well here. He's an elite putter. It's also kind of be a good story because to see a Georgia Bulldog win the day before that undeserving Alabama team just get thrashed by them. But I'm a bitter Ohio State fan. I'm a bitter Ohio State fan, so I have a hard time giving much respect to Alabama right now. But
okay.
Yeah, that's the good story in there. I think Harman he's looking good. I think it's a place where he should feel comfortable.
All right. Little any other Georgia players in the field?
No,
or Alabama players?
Yeah, I was about to say I have the one.
He's got both ends covered. Joel does, because he took Justin Thomas too.
That's true.
What, Thomas is Alabama?
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
All right, so you do have him covered. Any other Alabama Georgia players, or is that it?
Feels like at least Grayson Murray.
Where is he from?
He's about 4 different colleges.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that works, though, I guess.
He's playing for the national championship, I don't think.
All right, Jeff, who was your first alternate?
My first alternate, I'm going to go with another guy that won overseas during this break. He is the Australian PGA champion and has popped up on the radar a few times already, at least on mine. And that is Cameron Smith, who got into this by winning the team event with Jonas Blixt in New Orleans, but he can play well on his own too.
All right, yes, Cameron Smith. We're waiting to find out whether or not he is going to also be a breakout candidate. And no reason to think that he can't be, right? This is a very talented kid, maybe the next really good Aussie, correct?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that had to think long and hard about what he wanted to do in his late teen years, whether to turn professional out the gate or whether to go to college. He was being recruited very hard by, I think it was by Arizona State, and decided that he would throw caution to the wind a little bit and turn professional early. And of course there are bumps along the road, but he is a PGA Tour winner now, and and as I say, he's also won a few times on his own continent, including last month at the Australian PGA.
All right, so Cameron Smith, we're going to definitely keep an eye on him. I know Jeff has taken him a handful of times over the past year or so, maybe in one when it counts, and that we actually have an event that we are handicapping, he will be able to get it done. My top alternate, I'm going to stick with the 35-1 shots, make it a clean sweep of 35-1 shots for our number one alternates, and go with Mr. Xander Schauffele, who is coming off a second-place finish in Japan, and, of course, winning the Tour Championship event, following it up with a third at the CIMB Classic. So is Xander Schauffele the real deal? We will find out to start the 2018 season with the big boys, or was that just a fluke? This is somebody that's won twice already on the PGA Tour. Okay, let's go with number alternate 2. This is the long shots. So for Joel, if Brendan Steele doesn't play, who will be your alternate?
Well, there's not a lot of players left in that category that have had much success here, but Jason Duffner at 80-1. He took 5th here in 2014. Last year he started off with 68-68, which is at 10 under after the first 2 rounds. He was in a good position then, although struggled on the weekend. You had that big win from Memorial last year. I always like wedge players at this kind of tournament. He's someone he knows and they'll knock it close.
Okay, so there you go. In the books, Jason Duffner at 80-1 did not end the season strong. So we'll find out whether Duff can have himself a good season this season. Because how old is he, by the way?
42, maybe.
All right, so time's running out on the best of the peak of his career. So
yeah, give or take a year or two there, but I think he's in his early 40s.
Okay. All right, Jeff. So Kyle Stanley was your long shot. Who's your alternate?
My alternate, I'm going to go the opposite end of the spectrum. He's not a teenager. He's not Cameron Smith's age, but he is still young, and I still think that even though he's gotten out of the gate a little bit slow, he's got a lot of upside. But Bryson DeChambeau did win last year. He's in this field. And I think that he's still got, like I said, just a lot of upside as we head into the new season.
All right. And last player on the board then, let's see, a couple of different guys to consider here. Some of these players actually that are left didn't really have good ending to their seasons. I'm pretty high talent-wise, though, on a couple of these guys left. So let's see, who will I pick between these two? I'll go with Wesley Bryan as my number 2 alternate, and he is sitting there at 125 to 1. All right, so there you go. The list is in. The first event for 2018 is in. What do we got to look forward to next week? The Sony, Jeff?
With the Sony Open in Hawaii, and this will be the second of back-to-back defenses for Justin Thomas, as he became last year the second player in PGA Tour history to sweep the Hawaiian double at Kapalua and at Waialae. And last year at Waialae, he did it by completely rewriting the PGA Tour scoring records. At the Sony Open last year, he set the record for the lowest 18-hole score, 36-hole score, 54-hole score, and 72-hole score on the PGA Tour at any time. It's going to be hard to duplicate, but he must love Hawaii.
All right, we'll see. Maybe he'll get off to another blazing start. I'm sure Joel will appreciate that. And Joel, what would be your next work at ProGolfWeekly.com? What are you going to be doing?
Oh, thanks, Greg. Yes, please check out Pro Golf Weekly at ProGolfWeekly.com. We're going through some transitions now, and we're going to have some exciting stuff coming up. But for now, we continue to get all the stats, videos, compelling analysis, key highlights, and best in social media for every pro tour worldwide, including the PGA and LPGA tours. We have my extended storylines for the Century Tournament of Champions on there. Howard Picks Odds. We posted our 2017 All-Pro team on there too, so that's worth a look. And we have still have all the 2017 rewinds; those are pretty well in depth. And again, that's ProGolfWeekly.com for the best in social media and one-stop web portal for all pro golf tours worldwide. And follow me at Joel J. Cook on Twitter for latest updates, commentary, and much more. And then remember to tune in next week for when we do this for the second half of the Hawaii Swing.
All right, sounds like a plan. Don't forget to check out all our shows on demand within hours following every broadcast on our website at PrimeSportsNetwork.com or under iTunes or YouTube under Prime Sports Network. You can follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. We'll see you, as Joel said, next Wednesday for the Sony Open preview here on Prime Sports Golf on the Prime Sports Radio Network. For Jeff Shane, Joel Cook, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next week.